almost time to start. I wanted to start early, but I don't have enough viewers yet. Who else can I invite? I invited the world. Okay. I am going to kill the tunes and start to talk. Yeah, you like that fade out? That was done manually. Tonight, Deke and I are doing the year 1980. Those are my notes, and I've been scribbling notes, additional notes all night. Deke will be here at 7 when we shall begin talking about the year 1980. I am really, really excited because we're going to be talking about some specific albums, and we're going to be going a little bit more in depth than we normally do. And I'm really looking forward to that. Oh, you know what? Should really be using these, shouldn't I? "1980, says Robert Daniels. Yeah. And I'm really glad you're here. Really, really glad you are here because there's one album here that we need to discuss. But we're going to be doing some unboxings. I have 2 parcels here to unbox or depackage. Yeah, so we're just waiting on Deke, and I was hoping some more people would show up. I realize there's a Leafs game tonight, but this is the first time I've had to compete with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Oh, boy. There's Chris Sarr. Hi, Chris. How are you? It only says there's one person watching, but there's obviously more than one. All right. Since there's more than one, we'll start the unboxing. Where'd I put my Swiss Army knife? I brought it into this room. There it is. Okay, so first up, just a little parcel from Amazon here. This is, as you can probably guess, tech, because I'm always trying new tech from Amazon. I've spent a lot of money this year trying new tech, you know, and some of it's been worth it and some of it has been crappy. Chris Sarr, I am doing well, thank you. So here is what was in that box, and I hope it works well. This is a solar power bank, basically a solar battery. Essentially what you do is you give it a full charge, and then from that point forward it'll recharge itself using the sun. And this is for Sausage Fest this summer. So, and yes, Sausage Fest is happening. As long as nothing changes and as long as it's legal and safe, we will be doing Sausage Fest this summer. So this is an official announcement. I will not be live streaming on August 28th. Yeah, Chris, sorry, I wanted to do these unboxings before Deke gets here. That's all. Yeah, so Sausage Fest will be happening. I will not be live streaming on August the 28th. If all goes well, if everything stays legal, and if we can stay safe, which, well, I know we can. We're adults, so I know we can stay safe. And this is the second unpackaging, depackaging. And this is a special one because, well, you'll see. Some nice stuff in here. Okay, so there's 2 items in here. First is what I'm wearing tonight, or what I will be wearing tonight. Oops, shit. My brand new Visions and Sound shirt. I know it's backwards because I'm on the cell phone, but that does say Visions and Sound. Hey, Laurel, how are you? I'll let you know how it works. On August 28th, you'll be getting my review. And then secondly, because I can't find many of my hoodies anymore, I got a Visions and Sound hoodie, and this will be great for Sausage Fest because it gets cold up there at night. And we can't be cuddling around the fire as much as we did before, so I'm going to be relying on my brand new Visions in the Sound sweatshirt, hoodie to stay warm at Sausage Fest. Robert Daniels will be giving me a hug to keep me warm via his sweatshirt for Visions in Sound. Hello, Kevin, and it's nice to see you, Laurel. Okay, so what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to change into tonight's t-shirt. Then I'll bring Deke on board. Okay, let's get the earbuds in and get Deke on board. Super Deeks. Where are you, Super Deeks? How do I do this? How do I bring Deke on board? Ah, here. Oh, there he is. He's right there. Tonight's coffee is called Venizio, and tonight's soft drink is called 7-Up. 7-Up. Come on, let's click this twice now to bring him on. We're having some technical difficulties as always. Deke is here, and I keep trying to approve him, and then it says no answer from the live video guest. Bring Deke on camera. No answer. I don't know what's going on with Deke. But we are tonight are talking about some key albums from the year 1980 is the theme tonight, and I have ample notes. You know what? I could hold them up and you still couldn't read them because it's backwards. I'm not sure why I'm not able to bring Deke on board. Maybe, Deke, if you could send me a message or something. Dang, I'm here. Okay, you know what? I'm going to kill the stream and I'm going to start over. I want to executive produce this show, Kevin Semister. I'm going to kill the stream and we're going to start over. Okay, Deke? All right. Okay, we're restarting the stream, re-inviting people. Give me a second to re-invite everybody. There's a lot of people that sometimes watch. Like Frank Toms to watch. That'd be fun. We all like Frankie Toms. Mike Kudis would be nice if he showed up tonight. But you never know, right? You never know. Kevin Semister, of course. Len LaBelle. Len LaBelle, there we go. Dave Haslam. You never know. Dave Haslam might be home tonight. All right, I think we have everybody back. Let's try to bring Deke back on camera. Ellen, we are not talking about... Hey, there she is. There he is. Ellen was just talking about Cardi B's new song. That's why I misspoke. Ellen was talking about Cardi B, so I'm glad you came in to interrupt Cardi B. Thank you, Deke.
Anytime, Bal. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can see your record collection behind you, too. Sweet.
Not bad, eh?
Stuff.
Yeah. Hitting 3 years collecting.
Before we start with tonight's theme, which is albums from the year 1980, I'd like to, I was just, like I said, I was making notes, and I thought that some context would be nice. So I made some notes about the year 1980.
Ah, cool.
For example, okay, 1980. It was the year that Jimmy Carter was defeated by Ronald Reagan. Although Reagan wouldn't come into power until 1981, Jimmy Carter was president. In Canada, we had Joe Clark, who was defeated by Pierre Elliott Trudeau. He
Hmm.
became the prime minister for the fifth time. It was his fifth term.
Cool.
We have the Lake Placid Winter Olympics. We have the U.S. boycotting the Moscow Summer Olympics. Interestingly, here's one that I didn't know before. Apparently, in 1980, the USSR had its very first ever rock festival, which
No
is like
way.
the first step in 9 years later would become the Moscow Music Peace Festival that John Bon Jovi hosted.
For lumber.
But the very first rock festival to ever happen in the USSR happened in Moscow in 1980.
That's right.
It was also the year that Pac-Man came out. It was the year that Mount St. Helens erupted. And it was the year that John Lennon was killed.
Yep.
What a year. What a year. Like, I didn't even realize how epic that year is until I'm doing this reading today.
Yeah, that's I just remember going I think it was in grade 8 at the time when Mount St. Helens erupted, and
Yeah,
the ash actually made it here to Thunder Bay. Like not a ton of
incredible.
ash, but we were just astounded that this volcano blew and there was ash on our public school ground. It's like, what?
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that happened here, but all I can really remember about Mount St. Helens was seeing that, the explode, how the crater just kind of exploded the side of it out. And I
Yeah.
remember that my sister and I, when we were at the beach that summer, we'd make our own Mount St. Helens in the sand. And that's
Hmm.
all I can really remember.
I just remember that one old gnarly dude who refused to leave in his cottage. And when it blew out the side of the mountain,
Oh, sayonara,
adios.
dude.
Yeah, big time.
Robert Daniels says, kick ash.
Ah, well played.
So tonight we're going to be talking about albums that came out in 1980 because of all these 40th anniversaries that are happening right now.
Big time.
You picked three. I picked three.
Hmm.
Sorry about if there are people earlier talking about albums that, I hope you talk about Ace of Spades and all this other stuff. Well, I picked three and he picked three, but we're going to be talking more in depth than we normally do tonight.
Yep.
Um, I got my three. Do you want to go first? Do you want to take turns like that, or what do you want to do?
Sure. First, I got to do a couple of shout outs.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mr. Kevin Sinister. You guys all got to watch his Retro Fandango YouTube video cast. It's very good. I was watching it tonight, and I mean, they were off on some Star Trek stuff, and I had no idea what they were talking about. Then they
Oh
moved
man,
into,
if he's got you watching Star Trek, that's impressive.
and then he went into Rambo, and I kind of knew some Rambo, and then I typed in some gibberish, which didn't even make sense. So, anyways, there's that one he does, and Start to Continue. I always
Right.
forgot Start to Continue, so I have to plug those guys because I mean those guys are some vinyl loving hounds, man. You know, they get right into the crazy Zappa, Dylan, and stuff. So I told Kevin, you have to watch tonight because there's going to be one album in my three that you're really going to dig. So, anyways, if you want me to start,
Cool.
I'll start.
Yeah, do it. Let's go with the first album. Oh wait, first one thing. Robert Daniels, it seems like he wants me to sing something. In-depth stream with Mike and Deke.
Beautiful.
All right, let's do it. Glass Houses, Billy Joel.
Billy Joel. So one of the all-time great albums, and
Hey,
I'll
Leo.
tell you. Sorry.
Leo Goldbeck is online.
We'll go with. You remember back? Oh, well, we're talking 1980. So I was 13. And if you remember, even into the 80s, you would always get those Columbia House inserts, right? Well, back in 1980, I had no idea what Columbia House was, but my parents did. My parents weren't really huge into rock and roll. So I seen this Columbia House thing, didn't pay attention to it. And then my parents bought a bunch of stuff for, like the cent or the dollar or whatever it was at the time. And
Yeah, I think it was a penny.
yeah, a penny. So they had a bunch of stuff. I think the only rock thing they got on 8-track was like ABBA, Voulez-Vous. Like that was getting pretty dicey there. So my parents said, if you want to have a pick of an 8-track, we'll let you pick. And I was like, whoa. So I was scouring. They'd have like 3 pages of it, and I was scouring looking for Kiss. Nope. Looking for Cheap Trick. Nope. Looking for New England. Nope. looking for Judas Priest. Like those were the only 4 bands I knew of in 1980. This is before AC/DC came into my world that summer. So
Yeah.
there was this dude throwing a brick at a glass house. And as a 13-year-old, and you see a cover like that, you think, bad ass. So I got that on 8-track, and it was really my first experience of listening to 8-tracks because, you know, halfway through Still Rock and Roll to Me, you know, it's clicking over to the other side on side 2 of the tape.
Can I pause you for 1 second? Have you been on Twitter today and seen Greg Renoff? He's looking to buy a working 8-track player.
I wish I had one. I would sell one.
Yeah, no kidding.
So,
I had one up until around 1996.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think ours lasted that much longer, to be totally honest with you. But I mean, 8-tracks, I just thought, like, what the hell, you know? And I think 8-tracks again reared its ugly head in about 83, 84. And I remember T-Bone buying a bunch of 8-tracks, like Triumph Progressions of Power. He bought Gatto, all kinds of stuff for like 50 cents. Yeah.
All the Attic Records stuff.
Yeah, basically. So, but anyways, but back to Billy Joel. So when I seen that cover, I thought, you know what, that is a cover. So got it, and then as it turned out, once, you know, never did get it on CD, never did get it on cassette, surprisingly enough. But then once iTunes dropped, I bought it on iTunes, and I thought, wow, such a great record. And then when I hit 50 a few years ago, and me and T-Bone went to Montreal, we were scouring all those record shops, and I grabbed Glass Houses for $6. And I tell you, man, it was such a great revisit, because if you look at side 1 of Glass Houses, all 5 of those tracks were singles. You know, 4 of them were North American singles. The 5th track, All for Lena, was a European only single. So I would count that as close enough. The whole first side was singles. I mean, you got you may be right, sometimes a fantasy, don't ask me why, it's still rock and roll to me, and of course All for Lena. And that's just the first side, you know. And if you talk to our pal Jeff Steven, he digs the Glass Houses record, right? And he always goes for, and like I always say, it's those end of the album gem tracks that you always find on side 2, because, you know, a lot of people kind of start petering off. But you look at the 1 track, Sleeping with the Television On. I mean, it's such a brilliant piece of music that Billy wrote back then. I mean, it has just a good bumping bass line to it and a great catchy chorus, and such a great record. So it was amazing for me to hear Billy Joel back then, because this dude played piano. All the other bands I listened to, it was either the dude was singing like just Rob Halford, or you had Paul Stanley and Robin Zander, who played
frontman guitar player.
And here's Billy Joel winging out on a piano. And then, I mean, like, look at this guy here. Look at that picture, man. That's a train wreck, you know. And you may be right, sets the tone for that record. Like, listen to those lyrics. I mean, even when he throws in you know, when he sings the one line about riding the motorcycle in the driving rain, like, he just pulls like that creeper tone, right? And it's just so cool. Like, man, oh man, you know what, such a great record. And you know what, I have to also say that there is no AC/DC Back in Black. Sorry guys, it's been written enough,
been talked about a lot.
And you know what, we did a whole stream, which you can go back earlier, where we did our top 11 lists with AC/DC records, and there was a lot of Back in Black chatter. So from my end, sorry folks, but you know what, we got some good rock coming. So to you, Mike.
I did not pick Back in Black either. All right, I'm going to read some comments.
Sure.
Leo, you okay?
Oh yeah, I was just putting my record down.
Okay, I'm going to read some comments here.
I don't
Leo,
want to break Glass Houses record.
No, it's too fragile. My uncle bought me Glass Houses from the U.S. on cassette. I love that record, and I love Billy Joel, says Leo.
Nice.
Kevin Semister, you may be right. The opening theme to Dave's World. John T. Snow, 8-track sucks so bad. Nothing worse than a song fading out and then click and the song fades back in.
I hear you.
Kevin Semister, I have an 8-track player and it's a piece of shit. Sue Williamson does one of those.
The
And
boss is
Rob
watching.
Daniels, yeah, Rob Daniels owes Columbia House 1 penny still. I remember something about Columbia House. Do you remember they used to send mailers? Let's say your subscription lapsed,
Hmm.
and they'd always try to get you back, and they
Hmm.
would send you a mailer and would have a penny taped to it on the inside, and be like, "We'll even pay for the first albums on us."
Oh, that's
Do you
hilarious.
remember that?
That's right. Yeah. Oh man, that's crazy.
Good times though. I mean, like there's nothing better than just sitting there and checking off boxes and being like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
sending it in the mail, and then I think they sent you the tapes or cassette or albums or whatever, and then you paid by check later on. You'd write them a check and send it
Yeah.
in the mail.
Or a money
So
order.
really,
Yeah.
or money order, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
man.
really, it was kind of like a buy now pay later kind of deal.
Yeah, basically that's how I like getting ahead here in the late 80s. That's how I built up my CD collection. Right off the hop. I
That's how I
went through
started it.
and I bought stuff that I wouldn't normally buy, like Journey's Greatest Hits or, you know, Heart or whatever, like just stuff to, but for a penny. I mean, when you got down to those ninth through 12th picks, it was kind of, what am I going to go here with? So, served its purpose.
Well, that's I mean, I was lucky in the sense that I started at the record store in '94, so that I let my Columbia House expire when I started there.
Right.
But I had Columbia House from about '89,
Hmm.
'88, all the way through to '94. So 6 years, 6 solid years of Columbia House.
Wow.
Um, and
You're
it can get
VIP.
pricey. Yeah, I certainly was. They should have sent me free stuff, but one thing I loved about Columbia House were the catalogs, and I would take if there was a big enough picture, sometimes they would have like a page of Black Sabbath. I would take the picture and I would put it on my wall or my locker, because they did display well in a locker. They were perfect sized for a locker.
Yeah.
But that's a strong memory that I have. Or another thing that I would do is cut out the album cover artwork,
Hmm.
and if I had a CD that I recorded onto a cassette for portability, I would use that artwork from the Columbia House catalog for the cassette cover.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
tended to do that. I tended to record my CDs to cassette so I could play them in the car or what have you.
Hmm. Yeah. So good back
Um,
then.
well, I mean, the portability we have today is we couldn't have imagined the luxury today. Like the records behind you, you'd have to the amount of recording you'd have to do to make those portable. Back then, it would be
Yeah.
days of work, days of work.
Days. Yeah.
Today, I put all the CDs in my disk drive, and it's a few minutes, and Bob's your uncle.
Bob's your uncle. Yeah, that's right, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you
Um,
got for us, pal?
I'm trying to decide what order. That's why I'm stalling here. I'm trying to decide if I want to do a weird one next. I'll tell you what. I'm going to stall a little bit longer and see if Rob Daniels is still in the house because I want Rob Daniels on board when I do this album. Um, while I stall and wait for Rob Daniels to leave a comment, I will say that I was only 8 years old in the year 1980. So as far as I was concerned, I wasn't into rock and roll.
Mm.
Um, my strongest memories of liking music when I was that age, Robert Daniels is here, is liking science fiction soundtracks like Doctor Who, like that really. Do you remember that really cool synthesizer bit that the Doctor Who theme was?
Yeah, yeah.
Fucking love that. But then Star Wars came along. And
Yeah.
my 1980 album that I want Rob Daniels here on board for is the only one of these albums that I owned in 1980. It's this one,
Wow.
The Empire Strikes Back soundtrack. Um, it was a double album. I'm just going to read from some of my notes here. And it was actually, get this, John Williams' 32nd album. 32nd.
Wow. And he's still doing it now.
Well, I think he's retired now, but
Is he?
his last
Yeah.
album was 2019, The Rise of Skywalker.
Wow.
So, yeah, I guess you could say still doing it now. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
Just got to take care of this. Yeah, so he recorded that album with the London Symphony in 9 days. I had the original vinyl, which was a double. It was about 75 minutes in length, And I ended up giving that copy to my sister because there was a period of time where I decided I didn't want soundtracks in my collection. I don't understand my thinking. I
That's
wanted
all
to
right.
pare down certain things in my collection, just make it ever so slightly smaller. I gave my sister all of my Star Wars records, but she still has it and loves it. And I played the crap out of it when I was a kid. Um, John Williams, when he wrote that music, his goal was to work in the original soundtrack music from the first movie and weave in new themes. So he came up with new themes for Yoda, Han and Leia's love theme, and of course the big one was the Imperial theme. You know, the Imperial
Imperial
March.
March. Yeah,
Yeah. And he wrote that to be sort of like a military sounding march, which it is.
totally
There's
is.
no question of that. But that was my gateway drug to what eventually became my love of heavy metal. Because what other kind of music can you think of that has that bump, 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 ba da 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 bump, 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 ba da 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 da? That's virtually a Metallica riff.
Well, what do you think Metallica's hooking up with symphonies now?
There you go. John
Yeah.
Williams, uh, Chris Sires complaining about his feed freezing up. Chris, just refresh your screen. That'll clear it up. Um, John Williams wrote Yoda's theme to be more youthful, and if you remember the music for it, it was very very light and almost dance like very light and bright, representing the light side of the Force. But my favorite track as a kid was a song called "The Asteroid Field," which, if you remember from the movie, it's the part where Solo is flying through the asteroid field chasing TIE fighters, and it was really dramatic music. A lot of different things going on, but all of it really memorable. Um, like I was saying earlier, the original LP that I had as a kid was 75 minutes long, but it's been reissued a number of times because obviously the movie is longer than 75 minutes. It's
Yeah.
2 hours and change. So that's not all the music. The music that I grew up with on the record sounded awesome. Harrison says the asteroid field is poo-poo. Well, Harrison can stop being a contrarian. um, but it's been reissued a number of times, and the version that I have, my choice edition, is the 1997 special edition, which has the entire 124 minutes in sequence, exactly as you hear it in the film.
Okay.
Ooh, Metallica did the Imperial March in concert, Rob Daniels says.
Well,
I
yeah,
could
there
I
you
could
go.
totally hear that. And I'm also kind of hoping that Rob Daniels will chime in with what his preferred edition of The Empire Strikes Back is. I would like my original 1980 LP. I would like to get one again, a mint condition 1980 LP. I don't regret giving it to my sister because she's my sister. So I don't
Mhm.
regret giving it to my sister, but I do kind of regret not having it, if that makes any sense. I
Well,
don't regret giving it,
maybe
but
if Catherine's watching, maybe you guys can work out a bit of a
no,
deal.
no. I would like her to keep it. I absolutely want her to keep it, but I would like to replace it. I would like to get maybe even a better condition copy because
Yeah.
let's face it, man, the artwork inside was beautiful. I seem to remember there being a booklet with photos, like full color photos, and John Williams wrote liner notes. I remember reading liner notes in 1980. Um, and just one other thing, because I'm going to be saying this for each album I talk about. I like to talk about the chart positions. I don't know where the original album charted in 1980, but the 1997 reissue actually got to number 60, which is not
Wow.
bad when you think about it for a soundtrack. Yeah, so I'm also going to be talking about chart positions for every album. Robert Daniels recommends the 1997 two-disc RCA preferred version, although he does have the Polydor version as well. So that's what I have here. This is the 1997. And I just want to show it off real quick because this is going to look great on camera. These discs are holograms. So just very carefully take that out. And can you see how brilliant that looks?
Nice.
These are beautiful discs. Unfortunately, The Empire Strikes Back is kind of the saddest looking on CD because the first movie soundtrack, they used the Death Star as the graphic, which is a lot more cool looking. So yeah, I thought I'd go off the beaten track for my first album of 1980, and it's the Empire Strikes Back soundtrack, the only one that I actually heard in 1980.
That's actually impressive. That is right outside the box, man. But
Well, thank you.
I know you've written about that in the past before, about how that was basically your gateway into music. So, you know, you can kind of see the connection. And then, true, like they're saying, like Metallica with the Imperial March, and you know, with all those quotes.
Somebody said No Doubt did a version. Harrison says No Doubt did a version. Not exactly heavy metal. And his favorite track is Battle in the Snow. And apparently Robert Daniel says that Miko did a version of Empire. Um, is that the disco? Those disco soundtracks, Rob? Do you know about that, Deke? The disco version of Star Wars? John Bon Jovi's first album appearance ever was as a young background vocalist on a disco version of Bam, 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 Bam. Have you heard that disco version?
No, I don't know if I
No,
want to.
no. Um, Rob has talked about that, and he's played it on his show before. But yeah, that was a thing. That was a thing. They did disco versions of a lot of stuff.
I will give John credit though; he was probably singing better back then.
Probably. Now he just whispers.
Yeah.
But yeah, Miko Disco, says Rob Daniels. That could be a whole other. Maybe I'll write about that one day, because it's kind of it's a bizarre album. Maybe I should buy it on vinyl and review it or something.
There you go.
But yeah, Rob, if you want to drop a link to one of your shows where you play that, go right ahead. Drop a link in the comments, please. Yeah, okay. That's all I have to say about The Empire Strikes Back.
Okay. So I guess we're on to my number 2.
Yeah.
So,
although I don't, are we numbering these like in
or
favorites?
no, not like just going random, not like favorite 1, 2, 3. It's just a random 3.
Okay.
It's just like playing bingo, man. We just don't know which ball's gonna come up, right, pal?
Let's flip a coin.
Okay, juggler. Inside joke.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, that's the other thing too. The 2 of these 3 records I actually got in 1980, so we're showing my age. And the third one I actually got in January of 81, so it's actually very close to.
That'll count.
That will count, yeah. So, but anyways, for my second record that I got in 1980 was a band I had never ever heard of, but I think it was in probably the magazines I was buying at the time, which was basically Cream and Circus Magazine. It was probably Circus Magazine because they always featured a lot more of the rock stuff. And Cream I would buy basically just for Kiss and Cheap Trick. And the Cars, which I learned about a lot of other bands through Cream, but basically the ads, the rock stuff is basically featured in Circus magazines. And I just seen this cover, man, and I was just so blown away by it, because to me it just looked like a cover I'd never seen, and it was just a color scheme I'd never seen, and plus it was just a downright cool album cover. And that is, you see it there without reflecting?
Yeah, the game. I was hoping this was going to come up tonight, because yeah, I was just hoping it would come up tonight. You know, it's such a great album.
Oh, it's such a great album. And you know, like, and there we go. There's my second record that year that has a frontman / part-time keyboardist. And
true. You forget that.
Yeah, and I mean, look at the opener of that tune, "Play the Game." It's piano driven.
Yeah. A lot of their stuff is, but yeah, "Play the Game" is for sure.
But when I heard that record and heard what those 4 guys cooked up, I mean, that was the first time ever hearing Queen. And of course, I remember reading about how big Another One Bites the Dust. I think our shitty local AM radio at the time got on board playing Another One Bites the Dust, and of course, Crazy Little Thing Called Love. But man, you listen to that record now, and like stuff like Dragon Attack.
Yeah.
And, oh man, you
killer
know,
bass line on that one though, eh? Like boo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. You know, that bass line's killer.
Give it up for John Deacon, man.
Yeah.
Give it up.
And for John T. Snow.
Yeah, John T. Snow. And you know what? That dude composed 2 of the best tunes on there, and that's of course "No One Bites the Dust" and "Need Your Lovin' Today." It's just such a snappy little 3-minute ass kicker of a tune. And man, and you know, when you hear "Crazy Little Thing Called Love," like the beginning with Freddie, strumming his acoustic, you can actually hear him just fingering the acoustic on it. Like, Mac did a brilliant job of producing that record, and it just boggles my mind. I actually threw it on the other day when we were discussing about doing this, and it's just amazing the sonic landscape of that record. I mean, it had everything. It had rock, it had ballad, it had, you know, stuff like Dragon Attack, where, like you said, John Deacon, even though Brian May wrote the track, John Deacon's bass line drives that bus, man. Like, holy fuck. It's like...
Him and Taylor are locked in. They're just locked in. They always have been, but they became, I think, even more locked in the 80s when they kind of streamlined their sound a bit more. You know?
You know, I really got to get on the boat and really dig into some of that 80s stuff, but man, oh man.
Some really good funky Queen.
Well, I'm sure there is. Like, obviously, I know the singles and stuff, but even like The Game was their pinnacle, even in North America. I mean, the album was everywhere. It lasted everywhere. I mean, after you mentioned chart positions, obviously The Game was #1 in Canada. I think it sold like 5 times platinum in both States and Canada. You know, it was just a mega selling record. I mean, look at those guys on the cover.
I'll look it up.
You know,
I'll look it up while you talk.
No, Freddie. You know, he's stashless on the cover, man. You know?
I'm really pissed off here. I just Googled The Game, and the rapper came up before the album. Kind of stupid name for a rapper is The Game.
Yeah, that's just...
Okay, Queen album. So, yeah, okay. #1 in Canada, #1 in Holland, #1 in the UK, #1 in the US.
Yeah.
Sold... where does it say here? It's not giving me numbers for Canada, but in the United States, 4 million.
Probably did roughly the same in our per capita as well here.
Yeah, per capita, I'm sure it was just as big here in Canada.
That album had life, man, and still has life.
Still does, really.
Especially in my world, you know, it's easily in my top 10 all-time records, because up until then, it was like I said, the 4 bands, you know, Kiss, Cheap Trick, New England, Priest, and then you hear this other band.
Kind of the odd one out.
Well, that was just because of the Paul Stanley connection of him producing their debut, and I was a Kiss freak.
That's cool.
So I was like,
that's cool.
I gotta get this record because Paul Stanley's on it. Not on it, but
that's cool that you were already doing that. Like, that's your 4th band, and you're already like I know, like, my boss at the record store would kind of always be asking me questions like because we were responsible for buying used CDs. He didn't want us buying garbage, right? And there was a band called Pigface, industrial band called Pigface, and I knew that they had a connection to Trent Reznor. So he's like, what is this stupid thing that you bought? And I'm like, the side project, the 9 Inch Nails. We'll file it under 9 Inch Nails and say Trent Reznor's on it. And of course, it sold right away. I think we actually underpriced it. But, you know, that's just an example. And you were doing that. You were 4 bands into your life. And you were already doing that, making those connections. Well,
that reflected in my school marks because I was obviously studying album cover ads, freaking doing my math.
You know, man, so. I tell you, you know what? I'm gonna write a story about this. I'm gonna write a Getting More tale about this. But I worked music into so many of my school projects, if I could.
Yeah, I did
like
too.
My OAC year, I did 2, at least 1 project on music. I did my sociology class. I did censorship.
Okay.
So rock music, dun dun dun. Frank Zappa, Dee Snider. I took my VHS collection. I made a tape, a compilation of every single rock star interview that I had that was relevant to censorship, and I played it in class. Like, I'm going to write a story about that, but back to The Game.
I got to tell you. I got to tell you 2 quick stories about bringing music to class. Well, no. One story for bringing music to class, and it was about 85. I was probably in grade 12. In English class, bored out of our heads, and our English teacher said, "Okay, this assignment for this month is you have to pick a poet and explain his writing."
Who'd you pick?
Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
Because of the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Fuck, I did the exact same thing, man.
God bless Steve Harris. So what I did was I borrowed T-Bone's little boom box, and I brought it to class, and I synced a certain verse of Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, and it was so good once I pushed the play on it, and the front row of my grade 11, grade 12 English class was filled with Duran Duran fans, and they got to taste the Maiden that day, boy.
My God.
Even my English teacher, he said, you know what, that was a good presentation, syncing music. He goes, not my deal, but it was well done. So I thought, thank you, Steve Harris. And basically, Steve Harris figured out that poem for me, because if I tried reading the original, I was like, what?
Yeah.
And then same thing, a year before that, I was in, I can't remember what class it was, sociology or something, and we had to do a book report. And I was going, book report, I don't know what I'm going to do here. Ooh, Dune, to tame a land. There's peace of mind coming through. So Steve Harris, he basically explained the book Dune, the characters, Moadib.
He helped me pronounce the names.
Yeah.
Because you try pronouncing Quinzitarak.
Yeah. So you know what? I totally now basically, 35, 36 years going on, I can finally confess that everybody's borrowing from everybody. So I borrowed from Steve Harris. So if Steve Harris happens to be watching this, God bless you, man. You got me a couple pass marks when I should have actually got fail. So anyways, but yeah,
that's
back
awesome.
to the game, Mikey. It's just one of my all-time faves. I love the silver cover. The packaging had no, they're all decked out in black, and then just the silver around it, the front cover, the back cover, the inside sleeves. And it was actually, believe it or not, the first Queen album to feature a synthesizer, which they put in.
Yes, I was going to mention that earlier.
Yeah.
And which is mainly significant because every album since the very first said nobody played synthesizer. Every album since the very. I just want to read one thing about the game, because there's actually a B-side that's on the deluxe edition.
Okay.
And this kind of ties into something that I was talking about last week, which is Antarctic exploration. But there's a song that Roger Taylor wrote that was an album B-side called A Human Body. And there's a specific couple verses here that's about Robert Falcon Scott's doomed expedition to the pole. They were talking in whispers, in bearskins and fur, Captain Scott and his heroes to be, to have labored so long, to have made it this far. Ooh, it's been such a long ride. Oh, it's been such a long way for a human body, you see. It ties into my childhood.
There we go. There we go.
I also want to read some comments here if I can.
Sure.
Harrison Kopp, the original poem of Mariner, was criticized back in the day for being too hard to read. Okay, that's good. That makes sense. Kevin Semister started listening to Queen with Wayne's World, as did millions of other people.
I'm old. That's why, Kevin. He's a young
Dar says he was only Oh, here's a good story. Dar, he was only 13, and it was his first non-Beatles album that he ever bought.
You know what? I got a quick shout out here to Dar. His Habs kicked out the Penguins, so Dar's flying high right now. He's flying high right now. Sorry, back to our regular schedule program. Thanks for tuning in, Dar.
Congratulations, Dar.
Yeah.
Here in Argentina, says Leo, we all listen to Kiss Dynasty, Queen the Game, and ELO's Discovery.
Whoa, cool. And,
3-pack. I think he's saying that he has a 9-year-old that listens to this music, which is great.
That's awesome.
He says, Need Your Love Tonight rocks.
Attaboy.
The Game is awesome, says Rob Daniels, and he also loves the Flash Gordon soundtrack, which I wholeheartedly, I'm a Flash Gordon fan too. And regarding that John Bon Jovi appearance from the disco Star Wars, he says that album was called Christmas in the Stars. I vaguely remember it. Harrison Kopp is interested in my take on Stars on 45. All right, I'll have to get back to Harrison Kopp on that. Okay, I'm caught up on all the comments.
Attaboy. What's your pick there, buddy?
I think next I'll talk about...
See an anti-Habs comment. Whoa, there we go.
Screw the Habs, says Chris R. Yeah, well, Chris, come on, buddy. That's you right there. Here, hang on. I'm going to...
You got to flip it around. It's backwards.
I know. I wish... Well, let me just show you the picture, and you'll understand.
Yeah.
That's Chris.
Yeah.
That's you, buddy. That was what you said. Here's my album. Wow, what can I say? Unfortunately, I don't have 1980 memories to go with these albums, but I
Don't
certainly
matter.
love. Yeah. Um, so I'll start by just reading off some of the notes that I made.
Sure.
As you well know, as everybody well knows, this is the first Black Sabbath album with Deke, says Sue. This is their first album with Ronnie James Dio, and according to the research that I did twice today, because I left my notes at work, the band spent 11 months with Ozzy Osbourne trying to come up with an album, and all they came up with was an early version of Children of the Sea, which apparently Tony says that he has a demo of with Ozzy singing. That I'd like to hear.
Yeah.
Here's another surprise. Ronnie James Dio was introduced to Tony Iommi by bum 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 Sharon.
Wow.
Yeah. Who would have thought? Because she used to diss Dio back in the day, you know, when they were still rivals. She used to diss Dio.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it came down to after hiring Dio and starting work on the new album, Geezer was absent for the most of it. He was going through a divorce and he was just not there. And they had multiple bass players coming in during these sessions. So apparently, according to the notes, they had on some of the early demos Dio himself playing bass, because I believe he played bass in some of his early bands. Jeff Nichols playing bass. Nichols also played bass with them live, I believe, when they did a gig in South Africa, if I'm not mistaken. Craig Gruber from Elf played bass on the demos. Probably, according to the various stories that I've read, Craig Gruber probably did the majority of the bass tracks before Geezer came back to the band. And then Geezer re-recorded all the bass. But it seems that Craig Gruber was very, very much involved with the demoing of this album.
Mm-hmm.
And here's an interesting one that I didn't know. Apparently, Tony Iommi was very good friends with Frank Zappa, of all people. And Frank Zappa offered Tony to loan him his bass player, which in 1980 would have been Arthur Barrow. I didn't know this. Tony Iommi declined the offer because, not that Arthur Barrow's not a fantastic musician, but he was looking for somebody, a permanent bass player, you know, not just a stand-in for an album.
Yeah.
So eventually Geezer did come back, and as you are well aware, the bass on that album is monstrous.
Big time. Neon Nights, man. Boom.
The album, I like to think of Geezer's bass as very slinky. It's a very identifiable sound, and I do not think that Geezer in any way copied or did any kind of re-recording of Craig Gruber's bass parts. To me, the bass parts on that album sound like Geezer Butler. They sound like stuff he would have read. It has his finger-picking style. I think all those bass lines were written by Geezer. I don't think he copied previously existing ones.
Well,
that's my opinion.
You can hear his playing even on we're getting ahead here, even on the next record, like the title track of Mob Rules. That could have easily been on Heaven and Hell with that kind of bass playing, right?
Yeah.
Like, he did all the bass. I mean, that's a cool backstory. I mean, you did your homework on that one. Like all that shit I had no idea about. But then Sabbath's always, I mean, I knew Bill Ward was a complete disaster after that.
His parents died apparently at that time, and you know, that can very well do a person in. And it's not like Black Sabbath had a support system back then. They were they were entwined in the gears of the record making machine. Yeah. And they were tour album, and they were already coming apart.
Oh, they were like every other band that goes through it, right? Yeah, for sure. It just caught up with them. And of course, the lead singer change doesn't help either.
No. Speaking of which, Bill Ward was unhappy with the album in general. He didn't like Ronnie's lyrics. And obviously there's a lyrical shift between, you know, stuff like Johnny Blade, Johnny Blade, and you know, the world is full of kings and queens who will blind your eyes and steal your dreams. True. You know, two completely different styles. And I think Bill's
right. Geezer was right.
Right. Geezer wrote those lyrics.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And of course, the performance is completely different too.
Yeah.
But I believe Bill Ward, if I were to characterize it succinctly, Bill Ward felt that Ronnie's lyrics were more of a caricature, more of a parody of a Black Sabbath lyric.
Mm.
And he quit mid-tour, unfortunately. But yeah, like I said earlier, it was because he'd suffered so much with his parents, and of course the substance abuse. I don't believe that you ever really fully recover from
No,
lifelong substance abuse like that.
no.
Um, but I jumped ahead a little bit because I wanted to go back to the making of the album a little bit. Back to Craig Gruber. Craig Gruber actually claimed that he co-wrote the track "Heaven and Hell," and this has been disputed in
Of
various
course.
forums.
Yeah.
I remember Mr. Dio commented that, of course, Craig Gruber wrote "Heaven and Hell" to go with all the other great Craig Gruber hits that you remember from the past. Kind of
Ouch.
sarcastic there.
Yeah.
Ouch, yeah. Um, but there's also rumors that he's received payoffs and whatnot too. So who knows? Who knows? And it was Ronnie Dio who brought in Martin Birch to produce. They needed somebody strong at the helm,
Mhm.
and he of course worked with Martin Birch on 3 Rainbow albums.
Yep.
And of course, he was on those Rainbow albums as a carryover from his Deep Purple deal. He was
Yeah.
Richie Blackmore's producer, essentially.
Yeah.
Um, Back to Bill Ward. He was replaced initially, I believe. Who was it that turned them down? Somebody turned them down, and then in a snap, they got Vinny Appice from a band called Axis. And Vinny Appice would, of course, be their drummer for the next couple of years.
Hmm.
They went out on tour. Bill Ward did play mid-tour. There are recordings, live recordings of Bill Ward versions of these songs. I have them on single B-sides, but obviously Vinny Appice took over. On the tour, they played Neon Nights, Children of the Sea, Heaven and Hell, Die Young, Lonely is the Word, and Lady Evil. So the lion's share of the album, the majority of the album was played live. The
That
record went to number, yeah,
some of those songs you mentioned, like Lady Evil, Die Young, like, oh, those are just, yeah, classics. I mean, when I discovered Sabbath was a year later when Mob Rules came out, and our
okay.
local Sam the Record Man had this thing at 9 a.m. every Saturday morning for a half hour. They would put a record on sale for a half hour at $4.99.
Really?
So I skedaddled down there on one Saturday morning because it was Mob Rules, and I seen that cover, and I thought, well, there we go, there's the cover, right? And once I heard it, so that my introduction was the Dio period of Sabbath, and then
So how did
eventually
you know it was going to be on sale that half hour?
they would put it in Friday night's paper with a
Okay.
coupon, and so I'd be,
Wow, that's cool.
yeah,
That's
good old
cool.
days, yeah. So my introduction was the Dio period, and it was Mob Rules, and then I think a little later on, I think my buddy Muck, he was all over that stuff. I think he taped me Heaven and Hell, and I thought, man, I don't know which record I like better. They're both great. So
They are
yeah,
both great.
yeah. But Neon Nights, like,
Um,
what a great opener! Wow.
well, that was my introduction to Black Sabbath, I think.
Mine
I
too.
think that
Yeah.
was my introduction. I think, oh, no, sorry, it was not. Zero the Hero was.
Hmm.
So that makes Neon Nights my second Black Sabbath track that I ever heard, basically.
Hmm.
Um, the album went to number 9 in the UK, number 23 in Canada, and number 28 in the United States. And apparently, it's their third biggest selling album after Paranoid and Master of Reality.
No kidding.
So, yeah.
Wow.
I
That.
got this album the first time I got this album, not this copy obviously, but the first time I got this album, I was in Stratford, Ontario, and maybe it was a Music World or one of those chain stores.
Hmm.
And I remember I got 2 cassettes, and I think it was this one and Billy Sheehan, the Talus Years, I think it was.
Anyways.
We got comments here. Mob Rules sleeve cover is metal, says Kevin
Yes.
Sinister.
Yep.
Harrison Kopp, Mr. Contrarian, thinks that Heaven and Hell is a bit overrated. I think it's far too polished, and that makes a lot of the songs, predominantly the title track, really boring on it. Heaven and Hell is a piece of history. Says, now, Harrison, I'd like to address his comment. I agree with him that it's polished. it is obviously not as raw as the first album, the second album, the third album, the fourth album. It's not as it was 1980. It was a new decade. You had Queen coming out with The Game, which had
Mm.
synthesizer on it. Hey, Vu, um, cut Heavens and Hell some slack. Deke, cut it some slack. There's not a thing I would change about this album. Not a thing.
I ain't gonna dispute that,
Rob,
brother.
Rob Daniels first heard Mob Rules on the Heavy Metal soundtrack, which I think a lot of us first heard
Yeah,
that
that's right.
song on the Heavy Metal soundtrack. And same for me, Sammy Hagar, same deal.
Was that version of Mob Rules different?
Yes. I don't have my Mob Rules Deluxe Edition handy, but there's two different versions. Just like Time Machine on Dehumanizer, two different versions.
Yeah.
And you know what? Just for the record, the bonus tracks on this thing are all single B-sides. Children of the Sea live, Heaven and Hell live, Lady Evil in mono, because that was still a thing in 1980. Neon Nights live, another version of Children of the Sea live, Heaven and Hell, another version live, and Die Young live. So
Wow.
lots of value on those Sabbath Deluxe editions.
Yeah, that's cool. Good to see they
Yeah.
go all out, man. That's awesome.
I am a big supporter of these deluxe editions, but as you are well aware, they are slowly being replaced by super deluxe editions.
Shocker.
Yeah, annoying.
Mikey, that's the funny thing. Like you bring up like your entry points into certain bands. I know, like for myself, like you, it was Dio and Sabbath, right?
Yeah,
And it was kind of, just growing up at that time. Like some bands, when I really got into music, were already done. Like Zeppelin was finished.
yeah.
Um,
Purple was long gone.
yeah, and really, when I first really got into hearing the Who, they were already on their first farewell tour back in '82, and it was like, okay, like these
Yeah,
guys are calling it quits. Oh, all right, but of course, that was BS, and they're still out there doing it. But yeah, like it was just, I'm always fascinated to find one's entry point into certain records or like certain eras of bands. Like, it's pretty cool. It was pretty cool I mean, both of us, I think, were in the same, we didn't have the older brother whose records we could nick and steal and borrow and yada yada and listen to. Like, we had to discover this. I had to discover it myself through my friends like Muck, and
yeah,
even later
yeah,
on like T-Bone and stuff. Like once we, and magazines I read, and if it got a good review, I would buy it. Sometimes I get burned and be right pissed, but I had to discover this on my own. And it was like a lot of word of mouth and stuff. And
yeah,
nowadays, I mean, I look at my daughter's phones, and it's all playlists, right? I
yeah.
can't do playlists, man. I just
No.
can't. I got to do full albums, man. I'm so old. But
Well, I
and
mean, you saw last week's stream. I'm talking about Bob Shipper. He had Born Again on cassette,
yeah,
and he brought it over and said, "You got to hear this song called Zero the Hero."
yeah,
And I remember that cassette was so muddy and so distorted, but when the chorus comes in with that Zero the Hero, there
yeah.
was no denying that hook. And we used that cassette every Halloween for spooky music because it had a couple of intro bits on that album that were really spooky sounding.
Yeah.
So we would make loops of some of these bits from Sabbath songs, and we would loop them in with the introduction to The Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden
Ah,
and
interesting.
that kind of thing. Yeah,
That's
and we'd
cool.
make Halloween tapes, and we would play these on loudspeakers as we're doing our Halloween haunted house dealio.
That's
And
cool.
those. Another one that we used was the outro to Children of the Grave. He had, I guess that's Master of Reality. He
Mhm.
had Master of Reality on cassette, and we would play that Children of the Grave. We'd play that bit
Continuous
and
loop.
kind of loop that.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice,
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, we had so much fun, like just being creative with some of these albums because you made do with what you had.
Oh, frick,
Um,
yeah. I could tell you some stories, but we'll go right off on a tangent. But
maybe that's
you'll
another show.
that is another show. But I just see that Jeff Steven just tuned in.
Oh,
So
hello, Jeff
Jeff,
Steven.
you're gonna have to go back and watch earlier in the show because
Mm-hmm.
that's all I'm saying.
I'll timestamp that for Jeff Steven when I put the
That's
YouTube
awesome.
link up.
That's awesome.
Harrison Kopp says, again, complainy cop. Should I call him complainy cop? They could have
There we
put
go.
the. I'm going to say this in a pompous accent. They could have put the rest of the live stuff from that show in there. They played Sweetleaf, and it was great with Dio. Yeah, you know what, Harrison? I agree with you 100%. I'm just teasing. I don't want to have to buy the same album over again. It's cool if they would release that live thing as a standalone and not some limited edition standalone, like an actual standalone that I can go and buy at the record store for $30, $35, whatever it costs, $40, but not something that I can only get on Record Store Day for $80.
Yeah,
You know what
you
I'm
know
saying?
what? That's
I don't want to have to buy a 4 CD super. Sorry, I'm getting messages from people. I don't want to have to buy a 4 CD deluxe edition to get that show that you're talking about. I want that show, but I don't want to go off on this tangent. I'm a little frustrated. We all saw the
Sabbath.
Paranoid Deluxe Edition that's coming out, and it's like this is the third super deluxe or deluxe of Paranoid to come out. And the more I think about it, it's pissing me off, Deke. I'm gonna have to talk about this. I think pissing me off. I think I'm gonna have to buy that damn box set because I'm looking at my previous Paranoid. You know what? Let's quickly look at my folder here. I just want to confirm whether that has something on it that I actually do need. Paranoid. Okay. Good. It has nothing I need. I thought maybe that quad mix that's now it's folded down into stereo. I wasn't 100% sure if I have that in stereo, but I do. It was on the previous deluxe edition.
You know
And
what,
for
Matt?
anybody who wants the
I'm just
actual mix in quad, you can get it on DVD on the original 3-disc deluxe. Okay, I'm done. End rant.
all I'll say is I'm way behind you. All I have is the original on CD, and that was when record companies were mass producing CDs at the back end of the '80s on the cheap. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's my
I know the one
copy.
you mean. The one with
Yeah.
that page of liner notes. It says notes at the top. Yeah.
Notes, yeah, notes. Take heed.
Harrison Kopp is relieved that my collection remains complete. Thank you, Harrison. Um, I think I'm done my rant on box sets.
All right.
But Harrison has a valid point that if there's good live stuff, then please release it one day in a way that I can buy it. You
Yeah,
know?
true. True. All right. So are we on to pick number 3?
I guess your last album that we're going to talk about.
This is my last album. Got a bit of a backstory to it, and
Okay.
about a month ago, I was watching. Hope Kevin's still watching. Anyways, if not, you'll have to timestamp this.
Yes.
He was going through his all-time favorite records, and one of them was a Van Halen album, and I kind of threw up a couple of comments that, anyways, as the story goes, and you brought in 1980, you brought in John Lennon getting assassinated.
Yeah.
So I remember our local 4 stations we had at the time. We got from your favorite American city, Duluth. Duluth. We got a couple of their channels, and I can't remember. I think it was every day after school they would show a movie. Well, they started showing Beatle movie flicks like Hard Day's Night, 8 Days a Week.
Kevin's still here.
Okay, man, this is for you, pal. So everybody got on a Beatles kick, and it was John Lennon was all over the news. He was in the newspaper back then, and that music. I mean, I was hearing the Beatles, and they're all like bop bop, like showing the old happy tunes and stuff, and I thought, geez, I got to get a Beatles record. I got to get with the program here. I was like 13. I thought, maybe get, hell, I got into Billy Joel Glass Houses. Why not get a Beatles record? So went back down to Sam the Record Man in January of 1981. I walked in on that cold January morning, and oops, dropping my prop here.
Oh shoot!
So walked in and was about to grab John Lennon and Yoko Ono's Double Fantasy, because that was the big seller at the time.
Yep.
Last record. And then I seen this one. Game changer. You know, I seen that cover, man, and I was like, what is this? And then I flipped over and seen, I thought, wow, like, okay, these guys looked the part. And I took that record home, and I never heard sounds like that on an album before. I mean, I'm not even going to name the bands I was listening to already because I've already said them about 10 times. But when I heard that opening of The Cradle Will Rock into the jungle drums and
Yep.
Ross yodel, Tarzan yodel at the beginning of Everybody Wants Some,
Yo!
and into Fools, I never heard guitaring like that. I never heard rawness like that. They sounded like, at the time, I didn't know what cocaine was, but I mean, obviously they were flying high.
They were white lightning, yeah.
They were. Thanks, Kev. I'm glad you're watching, buddy. But I just never heard an album like that. It just floored me, and right then, boom, they became my favorite band. Like just on that one record, it blew me away. Like I thought, why doesn't Ace Frehley's guitar sound like that? Not the playing, but why not that tone? Like, and
Yeah.
Nielsen from Cheap Trick, they had those clean guitar tones on records. And here's this guy just like laying down the gauntlet, like saying, I'm the best, without him saying he's the best. And I was just like, wow. And like all four of those guys, like Anthony and the Alex and Roth and of course Eddie, I mean, that to me was a sonic game changer in my world. And the best thing about it was 2-3 months later, out comes Fair Warning. Boom, 2 records in the span of 3-4 months. And then I'm like totally mind blown. Like, well, these guys are nuts, you know. But Women and Children First, I mean, yeah, you just listen to it, like Fools, Romeo, Delight, you know, In a Simple Rhyme. I mean, they even did that little add-on bit at the end, Savage called Growth.
Growth, yeah,
And,
yeah. Which was supposed to be the opening track of Fair Warning, basically.
And then they forgot.
Yeah.
As the story goes, which is classic. So, you know, there's party treats involved, you know, but it was, you know, it's just such a great record. And to hear it at that young of an age, it just boggled my mind. Like, it was like, I was so absorbed with Van Halen then. I mean, it was like, wow, like, and then all the magazines at the time were, you know, they were getting a ton of magazine covers, articles,
yeah,
you know, and that was another reason I buy Cream, because they always featured their, you remember, did you ever buy Cream magazine?
No, I never saw it in the stands.
Oh, wow. Well, they're probably pretty much on their way out, like probably as the mid to late 80s went. But they used to always do their year-end readers poll. And the best thing about it was...
Chris Sarr says game time. I would just like to remind him, you know, this is you. This is what you said.
Yep. Good luck, pal.
Yeah, good luck. You're going to need it.
They would do, you know, their best guitarist, best drummer. That I would always buy that issue, because the guy who would win most pathetic every year was Roth. And they would make up the awards, and they would actually present it to them. And Dave, you know, he just took it, you know, like, hey, you know, all good. But yeah, such a great record. I mean, it's still a great album. I mean, it's just one of my all-time. It's probably, I have to say, you know, I've done a blog post on it 3-4 years ago about all my time favorite records, and I think the Van Halen one, I mean, people can say, I agree, you know, Fair Warning's a great album, 84. Any of those 6 Roth albums have a legit shot at being anybody's number one. Like, really. Yeah. But for that, where I discovered it, where my little noggin was at the time, and to hear it and to still hear it, it's like, yeah, this was a game changer. So for that would be my all-time favorite numero uno. But the thing was, and the thing was, I still remember buying it, and it had a sticker on the cover, Van Halen poster included. And I thought, no way. So I got home, and of course, you know, before I even put the record on, I opened up the poster, and it's a picture of Roth on his knees tied to a chain link fence. And that's like,
oh, the famous,
and as now you hear the story, that was a big gripe with the Van Halen brothers, because they're saying, do not put that in the album. Do not call that poster a Van Halen poster when it's not Van Halen. and Warner Brothers
Yeah.
did, and royally pissed them off. And as a 13-year-old, I'm like, what would I do with this? But you know what? You know what? It's like, damn, I wanted that back cover to be the poster. It's such a cool back cover photo, you know. Anthony with the big Jaybird going there in his hands, and oh man, it's like, it's a party record. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
One thing I wanted to say about that album is that the Jungle Drums.
yeah.
That was the first track. I think Everybody Wants Some was the first track that I heard on that album. And wow, like the Jungle Drums, I didn't know Van Halen did stuff like that,
No,
really.
no.
And the tone, you mentioned his tone earlier. Why doesn't Ace Frehley sound like that? Blah, blah, blah. I think a lot of people, we all talk about Eddie Van Halen's guitar playing, and rightfully so, but very few of us talk about his experimentation with improvising just the same way that me and Bob did with fucking a soldering iron and some wires,
Mm-hmm.
His amps. He put light dimmer switches on the amps. He did all kinds of crazy stuff with his guitars. Like he destroyed instruments experimenting with them.
Yeah,
But the end result was that he got that sound. It was the only way for him to get that sound. And then, of course, after Eddie Van Halen basically invented what they call the Brown sound,
Yep.
then the guitar companies respond with pedals that emulate this aspect of the sound and this aspect. And eventually, you could buy enough pedals that you could do a decent Eddie Van Halen impression. But Eddie Van Halen didn't have that luxury. He had to take a light dimmer switch and put it on his amp, probably at the risk of electrocuting himself or blowing up his amps.
Well, that's the thing too, and what I mean by that is not Ace Frehley trying to sound like Eddie Van Halen. It's just the actual roughness of how that guitar sounded. It sounded like a buzzsaw at times, and you didn't find that really on those '70s Kiss studio records. A little more amped up live on the live stuff, I'll give it, but just it's just like I just never heard craziness like that before. So yeah,
I'm going to read some of these comments because Kevin just left a good one. Eddie's tone is in his fingers. That is also true. That is also true, but there's no question that the sound that you hear in the records is also a result of him putting light dimmer switches on amplifiers. Harrison says Fleetwood Mac's Tusk had the sounds of a tissue box and a piece of steak getting hit. Chris R is asking if I'm baked. Okay. Mike just bought Playboys. I don't know what Chris is on about here. Chris said that your Van Halen is a great album. Kevin Semister says, yes, excellent choice, Deke. I think you saw that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, Eddie's tone is in his fingers as well. It takes both elements. I couldn't have. You put Eddie Van Halen's guitar in my hands, and it's not going to sound like Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah,
I will say, Kevin, unlike Mr. Fink earlier today, I will say we're both right.
Yeah, Kevin.
And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, go to Buried on Mars. Yeah.
Kevin's into this barring rounds like me and Mikey have had to go through in the past.
The less said about that, the better.
Welcome to the club, buddy. It's all good.
Well, I guess I should get to my last album so Chris Sarr can go and watch the hockey game if he hasn't left already. What can I say?
Drum roll.
Drum roll. Bum, 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 bum. Can you see that? Yes, you can.
Yes.
A debut. I think it's the only debut we've talked about tonight.
Yep.
Iron Maiden. Interestingly enough, I didn't really realize this until earlier, but we all know Steve Harris always had, right from the very beginning, a very clear vision. And it was always his vision. It was nobody else's. He was not happy with the first two producers that they worked with on this album, apparently. A guy by the name of Guy Edwards apparently produced a muddy sound, so he was given the kibosh. And a guy by the name of Andy Scott made the terrible error of telling Steve Harris that he should play with a pick instead of his fingers. So needless to say, Andy Scott got the boot. And then they went to the guy number 3 named Will Malone. And I actually don't mind the production on this album, even though it's considerably different from what Martin Birch did on the next 800 albums.
It sounds good. I mean, it is.
It sounds good to me.
Yeah, it's neat.
But it's very raw. I guess Steve Harris didn't like the rawness of it, although some of the fans have really embraced it, and I do. I think the biggest place on this album where you can hear that is on the track Running Free. You hear the live version that they did on Live After Death, and even the live version that's on Maiden Japan, and it's much more aggressive, much more chunky. And on the studio version, if you remember, there's that one bit where the guitars just kind of do scraping rather than chugging. They're going like, and it's a kind of a strange sound. Where in the live version they're chugging, dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
You know, so I think there's clear differences between the Maiden of the debut and the Maiden that emerged on the next album, Killers, and maybe that is down to Will Malone, but I don't mind that. I have to digress with Steve Harris on that one. One thing that Steve Harris did have a problem with was their second guitar player, Dennis Stratton, who is a late hire in the process. They were actually, I believe the Soundhouse tapes, the demo that they recorded before this, I believe they recorded that as a 4-piece. But they wanted a second guitar player for the album, and Dennis Stratton was brought on board. He was a little bit older than the other guys, and his tastes were a little bit different than the other guys. And they knew it wasn't working with Dennis Stratton when they were recording the album, let alone when they went on tour. He was in the studio afterwards working with some of the engineers, and he did some overdubs on the track Phantom of the Opera. And these overdubs reportedly sounded like Queen. And Steve Harris was not impressed. So, all these parts that Dennis Stratton worked on all night were erased, and he was probably given a talking to. But they knew that it wasn't working.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like you said earlier, Steve Harris's vision. That wasn't his vision. So
that's right.
Adios. Yeah. That's actually a pretty cool debut. I think I got that one. I got Killers obviously first, then Number of the Beast, and then I think I went back and got that debut, and I actually got a real cool copy of it for my 50th a few years back. A couple of girls I worked with bought me the Iron Maiden debut, and it comes with all the artwork on the vinyl itself, and it's a gatefold, and it's very well done. So I don't even play it. So my daughter Lexi went out. My daughter Lexi went out and got me a regular copy of it as a birthday gift or something later on. So I do have a copy of it, a copy I won't play and a copy I will play. But I could occasionally you can throw that on and Remember Tomorrow. Phantom of the Opera, there's Charlotte the Harlot. Yeah, it's good stuff on there. Prowler. Yeah. Prowler's a great tune, man. Wow.
Amazing tune. Sounds great with Bruce singing it too.
Yeah, that's right. That was on what, Real Dead one? Was doing Prowler?
Probably. Might also be on some B-sides. Probably it's on the Eddie's Archive box set.
Because he does, I know we talked about this before, but he does a wicked Remember Tomorrow on a Real Dead one.
Yes, he does. He re-recorded Prowler for the single for the Clairvoyant, whichever one it was that had the...
Prowler 88.
Prowler 88 and Charlotte 88. Yeah, so he did. He re-recorded studio versions of that.
Hey, Mikey? Go from Strutter 78 to Prowler 88.
Yeah, no kidding. There's a jump for you. Harrison Koppel liked this little factoid because he's always talking about the original Iron Maiden vocalist Paul Mario Day. Apparently, Paul Day claims to have co-written Strange World on this album. I don't know how Steve Harris feels about that. That's a great song. It's maybe one of the only Maiden things that you'd call a ballad, maybe.
Wasting Love?
It's very spacey. It's very spacey.
Yeah.
I love Strange World. Every song in this album has been played live, and the majority, if not all of it, has been played live with Bruce Dickinson. The only one I'm not 100% sure about is Strange World. But all the other ones have been played live with Bruce.
When I seen him when they did the remake of the Maiden England tour about 7-8 years ago, they brought back Phantom of the Opera.
Which is just mind-blowing. They did that on...
Especially when Murray and Smith get going on those guitars.
Yeah.
Such a great song. I mean, it's a great...
Magic.
There's nothing wrong with that debut pick, Mikey. Nothing wrong whatsoever.
Nothing.
No.
Oh, and here's another. The song, Iron Maiden, has been played at every single Iron Maiden concert ever.
Has to be.
Yeah, but you can't think of too many songs
No.
in rock history that that's the case for a band. Um, Interestingly enough, the U.S. edition that you grew up with and I grew up with, it had Sanctuary on it, which is
Mm-hmm.
not on this UK edition that I have. This
Mm.
UK edition only has 8 tracks. Sanctuary was a standalone single in the UK. But for you and I,
Whoa, what's
for you
going
and
on
I,
there, party guy?
spaghetti. For you and I, Sanctuary was just one of the album tracks.
Nice.
Um, and this is not the remastered edition, but the remastered edition that you might have on CD or have had on CD has brand new cover art that was redone by Derek Riggs. Notably, the eyes of Eddie are red on the redone one. I prefer these eyes. I like how it kind of goes with the streetlights. It's the same kind of effect. Just personal opinion. This is the 1996 2 CD edition, which has picture discs.
Cool.
Very, 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 very nice picture discs, and it has all the it has all the B sides. All the non-album tracks.
You've gone off the rails, buddy.
Gone off the rails as I put the case back. The case it must have snapped over the years. Sanctuary is on the bonus disc. Burning Ambition, which is a cool song. Drifter live, and I've Got the Fire live. Great B-sides. And this album went to number 4 in the UK.
That's right. Yeah.
Aside from the number ones that we were talking about, I think that's the highest charting album that we've done tonight.
Yeah.
That's kind of unexpected and cool.
That is kind of unexpected and cool.
I'm going to read some comments here. I agree with Harrison that the redone album cover is doo-doo. He hates the 88 Bruce tracks, and he really dislikes Bruce on Remember Tomorrow. Bruce did Prowler on Beast Over Hammersmith. Dennis Stratton was also hanging around with Kiss too much while on the road. I've heard that, and the Road Crew. He wasn't hanging out with the band. He was hanging out with other folks. 6 years later, Andy Scott would reform the Suite with ex-Maiden singer Paul Mario Day. There's Harrison with all of this info. And Kevin Semister is thanking us for the plug earlier.
You know, that's the thing. I mean, yeah, I don't care. I'll go to my grave saying that Remember Tomorrow by Bruce Dickinson is a kick-ass version.
I like it.
And you know what, though? Even the version of Diano on Maiden Japan, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that version either.
No, I agree. And I listened to Maiden Japan on the way to the lake last weekend. And it's funny you should mention this. This is actually coming up now, because last weekend I was driving to the lake and listening to Maiden Japan. And in my mind, I was hearing Bruce Dickinson singing Remember Tomorrow. Because as you know, when Paul sings it, he does it slightly differently. He says he says, from out of the, and then doesn't, yeah! Whereas Bruce Dickinson will say, from out of the sky.
Yeah.
You know, he finishes the sentence. So I was actually hearing Bruce Dickinson and kind of having a preference for Bruce Dickinson's singing the full sentence in Remember Tomorrow. So I see both sides of this story.
Yeah. And that you can see their shift in the vocalist change. They kind of went from a punky metal guy to a flat out, straight out DOS kind of singer who can hold the note, right?
Right.
So,
a singer. Deanna wasn't interested in being a singer.
No. And that's why they basically cut him loose, you know. Yeah. If you want a good history lesson on all things Maiden, and you know, get those 3 Popoff books that he just released on
great
of each decade. Like it's phenomenal. I'm just halfway through the Empire of the Clouds, the 3rd one right now, and you know, it's another great read. I mean, the guy's such a great writer, so I mean, it's amazing he can dissect all these. He does his research, and it's amazing he can dissect every single guitar solo, but talk about it differently. It's amazing, you know, like that's a fine art.
I don't know if this microphone is picking up any background audio or not. Excuse me, but I just heard Jen say "fuck," which means that the Leafs got scored on.
All's right in the world, I guess, for some.
Well, there's a very good chance that their season ends tonight, which I think is why our viewership dropped off sharply at 8 o'clock. But whatever. We've never had to compete with the Leafs. I'd like to say hello, if he's still watching, to Phil Desmond. Oh, Chris Sarr says the Leafs suck. Maybe he just came back from watching the Leafs.
Yeah, well, hey, Knight's still young, guy. They can still pull it
Yeah,
out.
Knight is still young, and
They
and
just,
and you know we're gonna be wrapping up in a bit, but sorry, too much 7-Up. Um, I want to plug before we start wrapping up. I want to plug Visions and Sound as I always do. Rob will be on at midnight on CKWR. Rob, why don't you drop a comment and let us know what your theme tonight is for your show? Visionsandsound.ca.
nice.
Yeah, we'll plug Kevin Semister's show, which is Fandango, Retro Fandango tonight, I believe you said, or does it start to continue tonight?
No, he. I was watching his Retro Fandango when I was eating my supper tonight. He was on at like 5
Oh,
o'clock.
okay.
Yeah, he knows we'll just demolish him in the ratings, so he's juggling around his.
Yeah. He needs the cross promotions, man. He needs it. Chris Sark is commenting about the Leafs. 48 years of watching this junk. It's over. Yep, BS. You're gonna still be talking about the Leafs a year from now. I know you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like we were saying at the start of the show. There's obviously a million albums that came out in 1980 that are critical albums. We talked about Back in Black. I mentioned Ace of Spades. We can't talk about them all. We just chose some personal ones tonight, and I hope
Yep.
people enjoy the personal ones that we chose. We can certainly do a second 1980 show if we so desire, but I think we've got plenty of ideas that we don't need to necessarily do repeats.
You know what we
I
should do,
guess we can let
Mikey?
the fans decide. What's that?
You know what we should do is do a episode on 3 albums from 1980 that didn't really set the sales charts on fire, but to
Ooh,
us,
interesting.
they mean something. Because I think I told you my 3, and then you said, blah, blah, I'm changing my 3, and I'm not telling you my top 3. And I'm like, fuck. Like, so I was like, So then I started going through all my records, finding the 1980s, and I found 3, and I thought, maybe I should really throw them for a loop and go for 3 that weren't the big sellers that I have. So that's something to chew on down the road.
Kevin Smister, I have to get my crap out of the way before the Mike Deek ratings juggernaut.
He's such a good shit.
Robert Daniels is talking about his show tonight. It's called 50. Oh, because Rob Daniels just turned 50. Happy birthday, Rob. 50 Years of Me, featuring his favorite music, Star Wars, Dune, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm, The Matrix Revolutions, and Skyrim, tonight at midnight. And you mentioned Dune earlier, the novel.
There we go.
Yeah. Harrison Copp's glad that we skipped British Steel. I did consider it. But you know, we've covered Priest. I think I did 2 shows on Priest.
Yeah.
British Steel is not my favorite Priest album, and probably not even in my top 5. We did a top 11 Priest, but I don't remember where I rated it.
And it's the same thing as Back in Black. I mean, what are we going to possibly talk about Back in Black that hasn't been talked about? It's hard enough to even write a review about it. Really.
I got one thing I want to talk about with Back in Black. There's an author named Jesse Fink, and he wrote a book that alleges that Bon Scott co-wrote a lot of the material on Back in Black, was never credited for it, and that he received secret payments from the Young family. And you can read all about this at Buried on Mars. And you might even be able to read some personal comments from the author, Jesse Fink himself.
And guess what? I'm the guy who steered Kevin into buying and reading that book.
So it's your fault.
It is my fault. I apologize, Kevin. I'm surprised he didn't sell me out in the comments today. But all I ever said about the book was I thought it was a great conspiracy theory angle.
Yeah, everybody loves a good conspiracy theory.
And then I read Fink's comment right off the gate at the shot that he fired across the bow at Kevin, and I thought,
you obviously don't know much about books.
Yeah, come on, man. Kevin, when he wrote his review, spent it on a different angle than how I read it and grasped it.
Which is fine.
Yeah. But I've also said that Jesse Fink wasn't there. He doesn't know the real deal. That's his angle. I could have a different angle. You, Kevin, everybody, every other AC/DC fan. But to me, I thought it was a good book. just on the angles of it made me think a little bit about this stuff. But I mean, the guy doesn't have to go and start going bonkers on somebody who actually paid money to buy his book. Like, that's really not cool. Like, that's
No.
douche, you know.
Kevin Semister says, I don't know what a book is. I think the difference between your review and Kevin Semister's review is that he kind of went in, and he's a mega AC/DC fan.
Oh yeah, no
I
doubt.
think we both concede the fanship to him.
Yeah.
I think he kind of went in it more like a forensics. Like, he wanted to
Yeah.
really piece it together and say what's
he
adding
pulled it
up here
apart.
and what's not. Yeah, exactly.
He dissected it more than I did. I said, hey, you know, the Youngs are still paying out the Scott family for Back in Black. Why would they do that if Bon Scott didn't have any lyrics on it? Yada, yada. So I thought, whoa, well, that kind of makes sense. Okay, so I wrote it from that angle. And that's just, for me, that's just a conversation piece, right?
Yep.
It gets comments flowing and people going, I don't believe it. Or, yeah, you know what, maybe you have a point there. Or I can kind of see that. It's a business, yada, yada. And then Kevin, yeah, he's hardcore, man. So, you know, he dissected the guy's book a little bit, and the guy went bonkers, like 2.5 years later. Guy must have been just goofing around and searching around on Google and came across Kevin's book, and then all of a sudden went, this guy doesn't know what he eat, doesn't know anything about books. God.
No, obviously, he doesn't even know what a book is.
No, I wish Mr. Books did a review of it, because that would have been the ultimate.
No kidding. No kidding.
But anyways, that's another story for another time.
I'm going to read some of Rob's plugs here as well. He is going to be doing a full show featuring every year from 1970 to 2020 in his coming weeks. That's really cool, and that's all going to be on his website, Visions and Sound. So that is pretty cool. That is a lot of shows for a good guy's 50 years on this planet Earth, and I'll try to catch as much of it as I can.
I'll try and stay awake.
Yeah, no kidding. That's the problem at our age. Chris Sarr said something about, he sent me a message. He doesn't think that Deke likes his comments about the Leafs. I just don't think Deke likes the Leafs personally.
No.
That's it. Oh, Eric Woods is watching. Eric Woods hates the Leafs too. At least he does now. All right. Well, do you want to wrap up?
Sure, pal. That was a ton of fun again, and
yeah,
a lot of good banter and a lot of good rock and roll and a lot of good memories. And that's the cool thing about doing these. I mean, you know, there's always a great. Hey, thanks, Robert. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
You know, like there's always a great backstory leading into it. I just love the discovery of our stuff into music. I mean,
yeah,
where you came in on Sabbath and da 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 da, and you know, where I came in on Van Halen and stuff like that. It's just fun to always.
And it all started for me. This was the start right here. This is unfortunately the only album that we talked about tonight that I owned in 1980.
Wow.
Kevin Semister says, I like it when you guys are talking about me. A+ episode.
Okay, next episode we'll bash Kevin.
And Tyler saying hello just as we're signing off. But thank you for coming in anyway, Tyler. Appreciate it. Hey, you can always watch from the beginning and hear about albums that are like 20 years older than you are. Maybe 15 years older. But well, thanks for doing this again, and we'll have to do it again. I want to give the Meat Man, I don't know where the Meat Man is tonight, but I want to send the Meat Man all my love because you're awesome. Sure. And I don't think you mind deferring to the Meat Man if he's available in the next week. But if not, maybe you will be.
It's all good, man.
Oh, and Harrison Kopp, he likes causing trouble. A+ episode.
It's all good, man. It's everybody has an opinion, and that's the great thing. We can have a discussion forum. You might think Remember Tomorrow with Bruce isn't so good. I think it's awesome. Mikey thinks it's awesome. 2-1, we win.
I get what he means.
Yeah,
I can still see his point of view.
I know. It's just it's just
if
fun.
We didn't have Harrison here to rip on us, we'd be a lot more bored.
True that. And hey, man, we appreciate whatever time zone you're in, pal. Staying up or getting up early or not even going to bed to watch us.
Yeah.
Cheers.
He's
to
12
you,
hours exactly away from us.
12 hours ahead? Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, he's on Saturday right now.
So he's in Australia?
So it's 8:30 in the morning on Saturday for him.
He's in Australia?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Hey. Good morning to you. And good night.
Good morning. Yes, good night. I'm not even going to bother saying go Leafs go. sorry everybody about the Leafs talk, but so yeah, have a great night, and Deke, I will be talking to you in the coming week, and we'll see what we got cooking.
You got it, brother. And thanks again for dropping the CD case, man. That made my night, buddy.
Well, I had to. You dropped the vinyl, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Who's the one that should be laughing now, man?
Both of them. Who's laughing now? Oh, and Rob Daniels says killer episode and killer shirt. So
All right,
awesome
man.
stuff. All right, take care. We'll see you next week.
All right, buddy.